Hills and Hollers about music and storytelling with my wife Kathy. My name is Mike. I'll do a few songs for you. Play a little banjola. Still ask what it is. It's a banjo neck on a mandolin body, sort of a hybrid instrument. And I'll play it like an old style banjo. And it's a neat old song that we'll start with called Stay All Night. That's what a lot of folks used to do because they didn't just drive the automobiles over to the friend's house. They just usually walk or take the horse. And if they stay too long, they'd have to just stay all night. It goes like this. Well, you can't go home if you're going by the mill. The bridge is washed out at the bottom of the hill. Big creek's up and the little creek's level. Plow my corn with a double shovel. Stay all night, stay a little longer. Dance all night, dance a little longer. Pull off your coat, throw it in the corner. Don't see why you can't stay a little longer. I was sitting on the window singing to my love when the swamp lily fell from the window up above. Mule in the grasshopper eating ice cream. The mule got sick and the lady on the green. Stay all night, stay a little longer. Dance all night, dance a little longer. Pull off the coat, throw it in the corner. Don't see why they can't stay a little longer. Well, you ought to see my blue-eyed Sally. She lives way down on Shinbone Alley. Number on the gate and the number on the door. The next house over is a grocery store. Stay all night, stay a little longer. Dance all night, dance a little longer. Pull off the coat, throw it in the corner. Don't see why you can't stay a little longer. So I guess you folks are staying all night, right? You brought your bedroom with you. Well, good. Yeah. Glad that you're here. Well, all of us are related around these parts, so Cousin Minnie Pearl did a song many years ago that I want to do for you. It's got a little repeat part that you'll get to help me with. On the chorus, I go, y'all come, and you go, y'all come, that's right. As southern as if you were from Florida or Georgia, or both, right? When you live in the country, everybody is your neighbor. On this one thing you can rely. They'll all come and see you, and they'll never ever leave you saying, y'all come and see us by and by. Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us when you can. Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us now and then. Anybody from north of the Mason-Dixon line? Everybody from the south?
Originally from Indiana.
Ah, well, the reason I asked that, a lot of folks from north of the Mason-Dixon love to say y'all. I don't know what that is, but they like to just do that part real southern-like. So if you're from there, help us out, all right? Well, the kin folks coming, they're coming by the dozen and eating everything from soup to hay. Well, right after dinner, they ain't looking any thinner, but this is what you'll hear them say. Y'all come,
Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us when you can. Y'all come,
Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us now and then. Well, Grandma's wishing they'd come into the kitchen and help do the dishes right away. When they all start leaving, well, even though she's grieving, you can still hear Grandma say, y'all come,
Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us when you can. Y'all come,
Y'all come,
y'all come,
y'all come.
Oh, y'all come and see us now and then. Oh, y'all come and see us now and then. And man, we're glad you came tonight. Thank you for coming.
Well, you know, I can't sing, so I gotta talk, all right? And I talk a lot. I'm a good woman, I talk a lot. But I want to welcome you to Tennessee. Tennessee is a Cherokee word. They called it the land of the little village. I also want to welcome you to the Smokies, or as the Cherokee called it, Chicanahey, the land of 1,000 smokes. I also want to welcome you to the community area of Gatlinburg, or as the Cherokee called it, Gatlinburg, the land of 1,000 t-shirt shops. And the Cherokee people settled here about 1,000 years ago, and I want to tell you just one of their legends. But to do this, I do need 2 volunteers. And you know, we are in the volunteer state. Now, you don't have to do something hard. I need a girl volunteer, and I need a boy volunteer. And it's really, really easy. In fact, if you stay back, it'll be harder than if you just volunteered. And I gotta surrender you to the forces.
How about little Dolly?
Okay. Miss Kellen, you want to come up and be a volunteer? Nope. How about your brother?
That's Jack.
No?
You have to.
It's Jack.
No.
Jack.
Anybody? Well, it's your chance to be on TV. Okay. Well, that'll work.
If you want a kid, get a kid.
All right. What's your first name?
Jesse.
Jesse. All right, Jesse, if you want to stand on that side.
Thanks.
And Jesse, I'm going to tell this story. And anytime I use the word, okay, yeah, you now you'll do it, right? Anytime I use the word council, like the animals held council, you go, just like you're talking, okay? And all the girls can go along and do that, okay? But now I need a woman, we'll let you be the girls. I need a boy. No boys. Okay, any parent willing to volunteer? Okay. We got Jesse and Kellen, and you are?
Rhett and Tanner.
Rhett and Tanner. If you want to stand over here, because I sometimes get carried away and I'll try not to slap you. No, I won't. Okay, Jesse and... No, just Rhett.
Oh, Tanner.
And okay. So when I say the word fire, anytime you hear the word fire, those of you will just say, you were with the girls, right? Yes. And you were with the boys. So all the boys say, ooh, ah. You can tell I'm pretty blonde. I don't usually involve the audience too much. Too many mechanics and I lose my... Okay. Now I'm going to tell you, this is how the animals got fire. Many, many, many moons ago, the Cherokee say that the Great Spirit sent forth a huge, huge thunder and lightning storm. And it was such a bad, bad storm that one of these lightning bolts hit a great, great big oak tree. And what it did, it caused that entire tree to go ablaze and start a huge fire.
Whoa.
And do you know that there were flames from the very, very top of that oak tree all the way down to the bottom? Every single limb was ablaze. And at first, the animals were very, very frightened by this fire.
Ooh. Ah.
And they stayed far, far, far away. But one by one, different animals started inching their way back to that great, great big ball of flames. And as they did, they noticed, this is warm. This is heat. This feels sort of good. Must have been the winter, okay? But, so they thought perhaps it would be good if all of us held fire, always.
Ooh, ah.
So all the animals decided they would get together and they would have council. Well, they decided that they need to send out one of their kind back to the fire.
Ooh.
And so they decided they would send out little Raven. And Raven flew all the way back to those hot burning flames. But you know what? Raven got far, far too close. And what happened? She badly, badly scorched her wings. And that is why the Cherokee will tell you today, whenever you see a raven, it is still black, as black can be. Well, the second time all the animals got together and decided to hold council, they decided, we better send out one of our kind known for being very, very wise. So who do you think they sent? Anybody? An owl, that's right. And this owl was more old than wise. Sometimes that happens. Well, anyway, he flew back to the fire.
Ooh.
And he too very, very badly burned his wings, his body, and his eyes. And on the way back to all the other animals, he had to keep rubbing the soot out of his eyes. And that is why the Cherokee will tell you still today, whenever you see an owl, he has these white spots around his eyes. Now the third time all the animals got together and held council, they decided maybe we should send out a young'un. So they decided we will send out little Possum. So Possum waddled back to the fire. But you know what? On his way back, he turned around, and guess what? He got his tail in that hot burning ball of fire. So he runs back to all the other animals, and when the animals see little Possum, they all shout together, "Holy smoke, little Possum! Your tail's on fire!" And so you know what those animals did? They jumped on top of his tail, and they got all those flames off. And you know what? That is why the Cherokee will tell you still today, whenever you see a possum, he's got a tail, but guess what? There's no fur, right? Now there is an ending to this story. We're going to go to that now. The fourth and the last time all the animals got together and held council, they said, why don't we send out a girl? A girl? Oh, has it gotten that bad, they thought? It had. We're going to send out little Lady Spider. So Lady Spider thought about how she could get fire for all the animals. And she thought, as a spider, I do a pretty good job about weaving webs. And so I will weave a web in the shape of a ball. I will crawl back to all those hot flames, and then I will get a hot coal, put it in the bowl, and carry it back to the animals on my back. So just think about that. That little lady spider, before she ever went back to the fire, she thought about what she needed to do to get the job done right. Do you men notice the difference there? Yeah. So she crawled back to the fire. She got a hot coal. I lost myself. And that is how the animals got fire. Thank you.
Alrighty, well let me do an animal song for you. Probably the most popular animal in all of the Great Smoky Mountains would be the black bear. That's right. And sometimes they call him Slewfoot because of the way his paws are done. And this little song goes like this. High on the mountain, tell me what you see. Bear tracks, looking back at me. You better get your rifle, before it's too late. That bear's got a little pig and he's headed for the gate. He's big around the middle and he's broad across the rump, running 90 miles an hour, taking 30 feet a jump. He ain't never been caught, he ain't never been treed. Some folks say he looks a lot like me. Well, I saved up my money and I bought me some bees. I started making honey way up in the trees. Cut down the trees, but the honey's all gone. Old Sleuth Bud's done gone and made himself at home. He's big around the middle and he's broad across the rump, running 90 miles an hour, taking 30 feet to jump. He ain't never been caught, he ain't never been treed. Some folks say he looks a lot like me. Well, winter's coming on and it's 40 below. The river's frozen over, so where can he go? I'll chase him up the gully and I'll run him in the well. I'll shoot him in the bottom just to hear him yell. He's big around the middle and broad across the rump, running 90 miles an hour, taking 30 feet to jump. He ain't never been caught, he ain't never been treed. Some folks say he looks a lot like me. Well, let me do another animal song for you. This one is about a mule. Mules are good. They're work animals, right? But this is this almost doubles for a love song. So one of these days, girls, some young boy is probably going to sing something like this to you. It goes like this. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. I ain't got time to kiss you now, the mule just ran away. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. Tie a knot in the old mule's tail before he runs away. I took my wife to the barnyard, I sat her down to supper. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Stuck her nose in the butter, she stuck her nose in the butter. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Anybody here from North Carolina? Well, they grow tobacco over in North Carolina, right? This is kind of a North Carolina bird. If I chewed tobacco, I'd tell you what I'd do. I'd get myself a mouthful and spit it all on you. I'd spit it all on you, yeah, I'd spit it all on you. I'd get myself a mouthful and spit it all on you. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. I ain't got time to kiss you now, the mule just ran away. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. Tie a knot in the old mule's tail before he runs away. What's that last verse, you remember? Well, I took my wife to the barnyard, I sat her down to supper. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Stuck her nose in the butter, she stuck her nose in the butter. She got choked on a turkey leg and stuck her nose in the butter. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. I ain't got time to kiss you now, the mule just ran away. Whoa, mule, kicking mule, I say. Tie a knot in the old mule's tail before he runs away. Oh, I remember.
You know, we've been here a couple other weeks before this, and one of the things I always do share with the stories that I tell is they're all true stories. If it is a legend, like the one I just did about the Cherokee, then I'll tell you it's a legend, okay? But otherwise, I tell true stories because the mountain people here and a lot of the Cherokee here also were just such strong people. And there were so many inspirational stories and so many good true stories that I thought, you know, their stories need to be told, okay? And I want to tell you a true story about this gentleman right here. And maybe just from seeing the picture, you can tell me who this is. Anyone? One of the most well-known of all the Cherokee leaders. And he'd always wear a turban and he'd make his own clay pipes. But his name was Sequoia. And if you've ever been to Northern California and to Sequoia National Park, those great big redwood trees, the sequoias, are named for this gentleman. But Sequoia, a Cherokee leader who lived in this area, do you know, he did something that no one has yet in world history to ever duplicate. Single-handedly, he gave his own people, the Cherokee, a written language. You see, before Sequoia, all of the people, grandparents, young people, middle-aged people, nobody could write their language. Everything was simply spoken. And so, he was a soldier at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend, and he was fighting. And he said, at night, I see that the white soldier, he gets a talking leaf from back home from his little girl. And when he read his talking leaf, I see too, it make big tear go down his cheek. He said, I would do anything if I could have my own talking leaf, because I have a little girl back home too. He said, when our land is taken from us, white man has something called treaty. We have no talking leaves, no treaties. So he decided he would work and continue working until he had given his people a written language. And you know, in the Cherokee language, it is not an alphabet. It is called a syllabary. And there are 86 symbols or sounds. So what Sequoia would do, if I would have been Sequoia, I'd watch every day and I'd listen for every time there was a different sound coming out of someone's mouth, and then I'd make a different symbol for it. Sequoia had nothing like paper. So what he would do, he would walk to a tree and he would take his knife and he would start to take the bark off of the trees. And then he would clean them from the inside, and he'd take his little knife or a sharp arrowhead, and then he would make another symbol, and another symbol, and another symbol. 12 long years it took him. Why so long? One time his wife went out and burned all of the bark, all of his work. You see, Sequoia was a silversmith by trade. And all the work orders were piling up and the bills weren't getting paid. And so she thought, oh, okay, I'm going to go out and burn that little hut and that'll be the end of it. But he started again. And then there were 2 attempts made on his life by his own people, because they saw the sketches on the bark and in the ground, and they said, oh, look, Sequoia, he is trying to cast a spell against his own people. Because this thing called language, these things called words, that's only for the white man. And the Great Spirit will punish all of us if Sequoia continues this. And so attempts were made on his life. And he tried to get his own people to understand, I'm not doing this to hurt us. I'm doing it to help us. Don't you see? This is a way to unite us and make us stronger. And because of his work, they would be the first tribe and one of the few tribes who would have their own newspaper. When he was done, it's sort of interesting, the first book the Cherokee people wanted in their own language was the Bible. And the first song they wanted in their own language was Amazing Grace. And so October of 1838, when 14,000 Cherokee left the Smokies, we had 15 holding pens in the Smokies. And as they would make the 1,200-mile journey to get to Oklahoma, short of wagons, food, blankets, supplies, over 4,000 died along the way. And where there was a grave, they would stop and they would sing Amazing Grace. And when they finally got to Oklahoma and decided to build their 7-sided council house, that is their sacred number, they sang Amazing Grace.
Well, I think we should sing Amazing Grace, don't you? That's a song many of us know. Let's sing that together. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious is that grace appeared the hour I first believed. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've known this day to sing God's praise. And when we first begun. Now there's an old spiritual that folks used to do about, that they would sing sometimes at funerals, and you'll know this one, I think. It goes like this. Sing with me if you know it. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Well, I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Coming for to carry me home. A band of angels coming after me, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Well, if you get there before I do, coming for to carry me home, tell all my friends that I'm coming too, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Thank you. Good job singing with me tonight.
It's some different instruments, but what is not here is a fiddle. Even though that's what I'm going to talk about, is fiddle playing and fiddles. Now, how many of you, I maybe need to talk to the parents and the grandparents for just a moment, but I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the Grand Ole Opry, okay? One of the longest running radio shows in America, and it started in 1925 out of Nashville. And one of the really, really big, actually kings of the Opry during its early start was a man by the name of Roy Acuff. Okay, how many heard of him? actually dominated the Opry for over 50 years. Now, he was from a small city just north of Knoxville, Tennessee, what is Maynardville. And he loved to play the fiddle, and of course that's the instrument that he probably was known most for. But that was a problem as a young teenage boy. He's a fiddle player, but you know what Dad is? A Baptist preacher. Those two in the 1900s, early 1900s in East Tennessee didn't go so well together. And fiddle players had very, very bad reputations. Of all the instruments you could play, that was probably the most sinful. In fact, girls, they couldn't even play a fiddle player till later on into the 1900s. It was so sinful. And think about it. Even today, if somebody is a bit lazy, doesn't get much accomplished, people might say they're just fiddling around. Here in the mountains, if you were known like this fellow over here as being a bit fiddle-footed, you know what that meant? Wasn't trustworthy. Yeah, he thinks I'm pointing to somebody else. I like that.
That's that Florida fellow, wasn't it?
Yeah, that Florida fella. It is you, sir. It is you. But, you know, fiddle-footed meant that you'd never commit to one person. And Ma'am would say, please don't marry a fiddle-footed man, because if you do, you'll split the quilt in less than a year. Splitting the quilt was their term for a separation or a divorce. But now, this is what I want to talk about, the fiddle. For many, many years throughout the mountains here, the fiddle had a nickname, and maybe you've heard of it. It was also known as the Devil's Box. Anybody heard of that? Well, the reason most people suspect that a fiddle was called the Devil's Box is because you'd go out Saturday night to a great, great big party or a hoedown where there'd be lots and lots of moonshine, lots of drinking, lots of swearing and cussing and spitting and all kinds of things like that, dancing, and that was not good, all right? So you'd have fiddle players who would play jigs at these dances and where there's drinking. So a lot of people thought that maybe this is where we get the term the Devil's Box from for the fiddle. But it is not. It goes back to an Irish legend way, way back, several hundred years ago, before people started coming to America. And what the legend says is if a little boy were ever given the gift of a fiddle, but he did not know how to play it, this is what he was to do. He would wait until the night of a full moon. Wait till after 12 o'clock midnight, and then he and his father would go out their cottage and they would start walking down the lane. You would keep walking until you got to the nearest fork in the road. And when you got to that fork, you would sit down. And then the little boy was told, take your fiddle and put it on your shoulder and hold that bow and wait. And wait. Because sometime during the night, in the darkness and the quiet of the woods, there was going to be a critter that is going to come out of those dark trees and woods, and it is going to slither up that little boy's back and then come up over his shoulder and come right onto the face of that fiddle. And that critter is going to move back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And that little boy was to take his bow and watch that critter and move that bow just like that critter. And that is how a fiddle player learned to play the fiddle. So, let me ask you, who was the critter? That's right, a snake. And in the Bible, who took the form of a snake? The devil, that's right. And that is why for many, many, many years that the fiddle had been known as the devil's box, because they said it was the old serpent himself that inspired you to play the fiddle. Thank you.
I'm going to do a Roy Acuff tune that some of you might know. Somebody said he was from Indiana originally? Yeah, this is their state song, right? The Wabash Cannonball. Yeah, it goes like this. From the great Atlantic Ocean to the wide Pacific shore, from the green old Smoky Mountains to the Southland by the shore, she's mighty tall and handsome, and she's known quite well by all. She's a regular combination of the Wabash Cannonball. Well, listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar as she glides along the woodlands, through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo call. You're traveling through the Smokies on the Wabash Cannonball. Our eastern states are dandy, so the people always say. From New York to St. Louis, with Chicago by the way. From the hills of Minnesota, where the rippling waters fall, no changes can be taken on the Wabash Cannonball. Well, listen to the jingle, the rumble, and the roar as she glides along the woodlands, through the hills and by the shore. Hear the mighty rush of the engine, hear the lonesome hobo call. You're traveling through the Smokies on the Wabash Cannonball. You're traveling through the Smokies on the Wabash Cannonball. Now, those are Roy Acuff. Well, you know, when she talked about the Grand Ole Opry, I couldn't help but think of one of the stars, one of the early stars, that, you know, we have songs today that have absolutely no substance or meaning whatsoever, right? Now, some of them do, but there's some stuff out there, and what is that? What are they talking about? Well, this is an old song that goes back to one of the early stars of the Grand Ole Opry, and it's a true story based over on the North Carolina side of the Smokies. You want to help?
No.
Oh.
She said no.
And but it's a love story. It's odd that you come up during a love story, but it's a good one. But it tells a story about two folks that fell in love. It goes like this. Many, many years ago, I was 23. I was married to a widow who was pretty as could be. This widow had a grown-up daughter who had hair of red. My father fell in love with her, and soon they two were wed. This made my dad my son-in-law, really changed my life. Now my daughter was my mother, 'cause she was my father's wife. To complicate the matter, even though it brought me joy, I soon became the father of a bouncing baby boy. My little baby then became a brother-in-law to Dad, and so became my uncle, though it made me very sad. For if he were my uncle, then that also made him brother to the widow's grown-up daughter, who's of course my stepmother. Mother's wife then had a son who kept him on the run. He became my grandchild, for he was my daughter's son. My wife is now my mother's mother, and it makes me blue, because although she is my wife, she's my grandmother too. If my wife is my grandmother, then I'm her grandchild. And every time I think of it, it drives me nearly wild, because now I have become the strangest case you ever saw. As husband of my grandmother, I am my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa. I'm my own grandpa.
Okay. Now we got some young'uns here today, right? You're a young'un. All right. Are any of you the youngest in your family? The baby of the family. Okay. Well, you know, had you grown up in these mountains, they'd have called you the leastun. That meant you were the least inside. So you were the leastun. Okay? And for your birthday or for Christmas, maybe Grandpa and Grandma might give you a play pretty. Anybody know what a play pretty was? That was a toy. That's right. We have to look at the old man here. I'm just teasing you. Yeah, Perry's always the first to go. I'm just giving you a bad time, you know. But, you know, and maybe we'd also at Christmas, we'd probably get a poke of candy. Now, what's a poke? All right, somebody knew a small paper bag was a poke, okay? How about cat heads? How long has it been since you ate one of those, the cat heads? And the dog's ears laid back.
Had one this morning.
Okay, a biscuit is a cat head, all right? Well, you know, there's words that we just normally use when you're about my age, and then I thought about it. I thought some younger people may not know all these words. Like, if I were to ask someone really, really young, you know, like, young man, maybe you, do you know what a record player is? All right, what is one? Okay, very good. I thought you were going to say it plays records. But something that plays music. Okay, very good. How about something known as a map? Anybody know what a map is?
It tells you where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, and how does it do it? Is it like something on your phone?
It can be, it shows you, it's like a piece of paper that's on the phone and it has line that it takes you.
Okay.
And it takes forever to get it folded back up.
Yes, that's right. It's, okay, the original ones, like around my time, were made out of paper. And they were accordion-like, and you had to unfold them, and I rarely got it folded back up the same way, okay? And there's something else today that is called a radio. How many of you know what a radio is? Or have a radio? Okay. All right, a few of you do. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you must be spending some time with Grandpa and Grandma, and they're teaching you these things, like what a radio is. You might, actually, years ago, people would listen to radios in their cars. And, you know, before it was ever called a radio, it was called a wireless music box. Wireless music box. And you know what is really, really funny about this? When it was first invented in 1890, when people would listen to the wireless music box, they always closed their eyes. They closed their eyes because they thought if they closed their eyes, they could hear it better. So, that was the wireless music box. The radio got so popular that, you know what? By the 1930s, more people in America had a radio than a bathtub, or indoor plumbing, telephones, or cars. And they think kids are bad today, but the average adult listens to the radio 5.5 hours. I want to tell you one story, and then Mike's going to come sing a song about the radio. There was a man by the name of Elbert Brumley. He wrote many songs, and he wrote songs, gospel songs, on one of the airwaves of Zion. If you were a Christian radio station and did gospel music, That's how WNOX in Knoxville started, owned by Knoxville Baptist Church. You were an airwave of Zion. And this writer, Albert Brumley, wrote over 600 songs. But his most famous song, you'll know it, I'll Fly Away. He wrote it in 1932. That song has been recorded over 500 times. But also, one day, Albert Brumley was thinking, and he said, I've written lots and lots of songs, and they've become so popular, all because of this little box called the radio. So he said, why don't I write a song all about radios and listening to the radio? So that's when he decided to pen the song, Turn Your Radio On.
Come and listen to a radio station where the mighty hosts of heaven sing. Turn your radio on, turn your radio on. If you want to hear the songs of Zion coming from the land of endless spring, get in touch with God. Turn your radio on, turn your radio on, and listen to the music in the air. Turn your radio on, heaven's glory share. Turn the lights down low and listen to the Master's radio. Get in touch with God. Turn your radio on. Let's do that Albert Brumley song, all right? Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Well, there's just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a land where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away. Oh, glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Little light of mine? Sure. Let's do a little bit of this little light of mine. We got any young'uns that can help us a little bit with this one? You want to come help us do that? Yeah, maybe not.
They're shy.
Okay, well, just watch Kathy for the motions on this little light of mine. All right, everybody got it up? Here we go. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Hide it under a bushel, no, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Won't let Satan blow it out, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Verse again. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Mike will finish up with a song or two, and then we'll let you go. But this is also a true story. This is Doc Thomas. You may not all be able to see that picture very well, but this was Sevier County's very first permanent doctor. He is also well known because he is the doctor who January 19th, 1946 caught Miss Dolly. All right? And if you go out to Dollywood today, you will see that the chapel there is named for Doc Thomas. But in his own right, this man was a very, very godly, strong man. He came here with his wife, Eva, in 1926. They were from New York State, and they had been missionaries to China. And due to his wife's health, they were called back to the States. And they were asked if they would like to do mission work at Pittman Center, just a few miles down the road from here, because the Methodist Church would be starting a school and mission work for these mountain children. And it was sort of interesting. He said, well, they told me if Eva and I went to East Tennessee, we'd be considered foreigners. And he said, well, they told us we're going to a foreign land and we're going to be considered foreigners. And he thought, well, we just came from China. Surely East Tennessee could not be more foreign than China. But when he got here, he said, we were wrong. It was. He was also warned that when they left Binghamton, New York, in their old Chevy with all their earthly belongings, that Dr. Burnett of the Methodist Conference said, the last 25 miles from Newport, Tennessee to Pittman Center is going to take you probably 5 to 6 hours. And Doc Thomas said, boy, did we prove him wrong. It took us 8. He said it took us as long to go those last 25 miles, almost as coming from New York. He said there were curves within curves, and the ruts and the rocks were so bad. There were places that I was driving where the fender of the old Chevy was actually wider than the road that I was on. He said there was no way to skirt any rocks, so I had to take them just head on and pray that the axle didn't snap. But we came because we felt God called us here to these mountain people. And this man of God did an absolutely amazing work starting in 1926. You see, Doc Thomas, he ran the clinic at the mission center. And he said, one day I remember we had 74 patients. He also would go up and down all these hollers and valleys, and he would go whether it was for critters that had 2 feet or 4 feet. Because if their animals, if their mules, if their dogs were sick, he'd never say no. And so he would take his horse named Maud, and he would go as far as he could by way of horse, and then if he had to walk the rest of the way, he would do so. But you know what's interesting? He was also a Methodist preacher. And so he had 6 different churches that he would go to each Sunday as a circuit riding pastor. He also became the superintendent of the schools. And then in the 1930s, because of the Great Depression, and we were in the process of developing Great Smoky Mountains National Park, well, because of the Depression, FDR started the CCC, Civilian Conservation Corps. And so Doc Thomas was the one doctor who would go out to them, and he helped their bodies and their souls, because he would preach and he would doctor them. And then in 1941, after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, we had a conscientious objectors camp here in the Smokies, out by Elkmont today. And when men did not want to, for religious reasons, go to war and fight, Doc Thomas would go to the conscientious objectors camp when no one else would. Out of his salary, he would make sure for 2 years he provided a hot lunch program at the school out of his own salary, just to make sure that every boy and girl received at least one good hot meal a day. And at night, his wife Eva says he'd be restless. He couldn't sleep. And I'd say, what's wrong? He said, I know that up the hall, the Bohannon children, they went to bed tonight and they had nothing to eat. I know they're cold. I know their hope is almost gone. And so because he was working 14 to 16-hour days, 7 days a week, he came in 26, and by the spring of 35, as a doctor who was having very, very bad chest pains, and there was pains going down his left arm. And so he said, I better go to Knoxville and have an EKG. The doctors there confirmed that he had severely damaged his heart. And the doctor told him, he said, if you do not get out of those mountains and away from those mountain people, they're going to be the death of you. They're going to kill you. He said, Doc Thomas, we have a position right now at this hospital that is open. You can come to Knoxville and be a city doctor. We will start you at a salary of $6,000 a year. What are you being paid to be in the mountains? He said, I get $125 a month from the mission and all the churches put together. That day, Doc Thomas, he came back to Pittman Center in Greenbrier, and he came back with a very, very heavy heart. And he went to the pinnacle to pray. And he said, Lord, I thought that you were the one who brought me to these mountains. We felt called to come here. And now these people love us. They trust us. We're no longer foreigners. I am delivering their babies. I'm doing surgeries. We're friends. How can I trade their trust, their love, the needs they have to go in and take a city practice? And yet they're telling me if I don't, I'll be dead within a year. So we prayed, and God gave him a verse in the Bible from the Gospel of John. It says, he that believeth, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And he said, I'm going to claim that verse today, Lord, and in faith I will go on trusting you that the work you have given me is bigger than myself, and I will be faithful. Doc Thomas continued the mission work until 1964 when he retired, never to suffer with heart problems again. A book has been written about his life, and it's called So Sure of Life. And he said this, and it's so important for us to hold on today, right now, because of what we're going through. He said, I can go on so sure of life because I am so sure of my God. And that was his testimony. Doc Thomas, a man of faith. God hasn't changed. We too today can be people of faith because of him.
Life is easy when you're up on a mountain. You've got peace of mind like you've never known. But then things change and you're down in the valley. Don't lose faith, for you are never alone. For the God on the mountain is still God in the valley. When things go wrong, He'll make out in the night. Well, God bless you. You guys have a wonderful time here in the pulpit. I hope you'll come back and see us often. Have a good evening.
Thank you.